Where? So said you grew up in Houston.
Yeah.
What was life like as a kid for you?
It was, Houston's a very fast city. You know what I mean? Like, so, yeah, it was, and then growing up, in the early '90s, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? There, it was tough. I
in the
mean,
'90s.
it was tough, like I said, everything over there, and, they call it the city of no pity, you know what I mean? Like
Wow.
that it's it's got its good, its bad, and its ugly, you know what I mean, there. So, when my dad, everybody, my family decided to come down here, you know what I mean? We just so I came down here in '95 and I ain't left.
Wow. 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 Was your dad in the refinery business? Is that how he
No,
came
so
over?
my dad, for 35 years was a commercial and industrial AC mechanic.
Oh,
So all the venting in AC compressors and all that stuff. He would install that, and just he did that for over 30 years.
hey, nice.
So
Did you have any like role models growing up that influenced your path?
yeah, my mom. You know what I mean?
Your mom, yeah, you mentioned her a lot.
Yeah, my mom. She I said she was a special needs teacher. So she was always always giving back. You know what I mean? People always looked up to her and always went to her for things because the old school moms, man. I mean, they're built different back then. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They love. When they love, they really love. And you don't have to be a direct son or a direct daughter with the same blood. You know what I
Mm,
mean? They just, when they love you, they love you. And my mom was always known for just helping people and stuff like that. And I seen that growing up. I'm the oldest son, so I got to see everything firsthand.
wow.
And my dad too. My dad was with that old school knucklehead dad. You know what I mean? That he was tough on us. You know what I
Oh,
mean? And I took everything with a salt of grain, and what I mean, just learned from everything from him, and I still use everything that I learned from him to
yeah.
this day. I lost my dad in 2010.
Wow.
So
Wow. So you learned a lot from your dad. That man, I think that's very important, and I talk about that often. As far as having a father in the household,
that's crucial. You know what I mean? And that's where, even as Hispanics, Mexicans, Latinos, you know what I mean, you know, we go back and look at how our grandparents were, you know what I mean, and having our parents see that they had their dad in their lives, you know what I mean,
mm,
it just helped them be the way they were when it came time for them having kids. And we're a product of them, you know
yeah,
what I mean. And we got to keep this cycle of keeping our dads in our lives, what I mean, dads keeping their kids in lives, because
yeah,
it's very important, what I mean. Like, I always said this, and some people disagree, some people don't, but I've always said, what I mean, a woman can't raise a man, and a man can't raise a daughter,
mm,
in the sense of understanding what it's going to take to be a woman when you grow up.
right, right, right.
And a mom teaching a young man how to be a man. You know what I mean? There's roles for that reason. And unfortunately, there's just a lot of homes that don't have that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's hard, and it puts a lot of stress on the single dads, the single moms. You know what I mean? Trying to do it when dads walk out on their lives, or the mom walks out on their lives. And you're trying to play both parts. It's tough.
it's tough. Yeah, for sure. I know this when I'm teaching my kids. Like I notice things that my dad used to teach me. I'm teaching my kids. You know what I mean? And of course, growing up, you're like you don't understand what's
Nah.
going on. Is it until you're in their shoes, you're like, man, I realize why they told me that.
Yep.
Yeah.
My
So
dad used to always tell us, like, what I mean, you think I'm being hard on you, I said, but you'll thank me later. You know what I mean? And up until he took his last breath, that was one of the things I whispered into his ear, and was just told him, just like, I'm going to continue, doing what you taught me to do.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Because he was real, like, he was old school. He was an old school man, so he believed, young boys are treated this way to be built this way.
right.
You know what I mean? And there was 5 boys. I'm the oldest, so it was, to have 5 boys in the house. You know what I mean? With just a mom. You know what I mean? That was tough on my mom. You know what I mean? Having
Yeah.
5 boys. You know what I mean?